Alright friends, so we are moving to our last little bit of instruction regarding our ecology unit, and today we're going to be looking at inferring the effects that may result from the interconnected relationship of plants and animals to their ecosystem. So we're going to be looking at interdependence today. For this video, we're just going to kind of talk about it as if I was just leading a quick whole group at the front, and I'm going to show you the activity that you will do to practice it and think about it on your own. Of course, remember to pause and rewind so that way you can have appropriate understanding, and you can have something to write on and write with if you would like to take notes during this video, or you can just go ahead and listen. Because again, you'll have an activity that you're going to complete for your assignment after you watch this instructional video. It is 10 questions that you will think about, say whether you agree or disagree with the statement and why. Alright, so like I said, this is all about interdependence, okay? All about interdependence. And what interdependence is talking about is that everything needs or depends on one another in some way, okay? And this is especially apparent within our food chains, food webs of our ecosystem, right? So, to infer the effects of interdependence, we have to think about a couple things. We have to think about how are these things connected? Why are these things connected? And then what would happen if they weren't connected? So, for example, I have a food web up here, and our question that we want to think about, that we want to infer about, is what would happen if the larger crab populations declined? Okay, so when I'm looking at this, I have to first think about how are things connected? Okay, so with the larger crabs is right here. How are they connected? Okay, well, the larger crabs eat a whole bunch of things, right? Eat sea stars, smaller fish and vertebrates, drift algae, invertebrates, like a whole bunch of stuff. And then the larger fishes and octopuses eat the larger crabs, along with the sea otter eats those larger crabs as well. Okay, that's how they are connected. Why are they connected that way? Well, because they're eating one another. So what's going to happen if they're not connected? Okay, so if I'm thinking about this, what's going to happen if they're no longer connected? Well, if they're no longer connected, then sea otters and larger fishes and octopuses will have less food. Because if there's not as many larger crabs, there's not going to be as much food for them. And if there's less food, then potentially those populations will decrease because they'll be dying of hunger, right? If there's not enough for them to eat, they're going to die. What else might happen? Well, the populations of the things the larger crabs eat may get larger. They might get larger because there's no longer this predator, this larger crab, trying to eat them. Let's try another one. All right, so now let's think about this one right here. Okay, this is a little bit more simple one. What would happen if most of the oak trees were chopped down for furniture? Okay, let's go through our process again. So here's my oak trees right here. Okay, how are they connected? Well, the chipmunk eats the acorns from the oak tree, and then the owl eats the chipmunk. Why are they connected that way? Again, we're passing that energy. We're eating one another. How would it happen if they were not connected anymore? Well, if the chipmunk no longer has as many acorns, what's going to happen? The chipmunk's going to die because they're not going to have as much food. What happens when the chipmunk dies? The owl potentially could die, or we'll say that the populations will decrease. There'll probably be less chipmunks, there'll be less owls because there's less food. This is a great example of human impact on the environment. Sea turtles is a great one as well. Hint, hint, this one is in your mastery check. As people started moving out to the beach and started building, the sea turtle population started declining because there was a loss of habitat. There was a loss of resources because of what the humans were doing. Let's go ahead and do one more before you try some by yourself. All right, let's look at, went too far. Here we go. Let's look at this one. Okay, so what would happen if the snake population declined? That's a terrible color. Let me get a little bit one that we can actually see. Okay, what happens if the snake population declines? Okay, so how are they connected? Okay, well, the snakes eat the mice, and then the hawks eat the snake, okay? So why are they connected? Again, we're doing it because it's within that food web. what's going to happen if they're no longer. Okay, I know that it has to do with eating, so that's going to happen with my what's going to happen if they're no longer. Okay, so if it greatly declined, probably mouse population would greatly increase because there's less predators. So that wouldn't be good. And then the hawk population would decrease because there's less food. Now, the hawk population probably wouldn't decrease as much as like in our other examples, because the hawks also eat rabbits and lizards and mice, but at the same time it's still going to take a hit, because if I don't have this piece in my food web, things start to fall apart because everything is interconnected. It's that interdependence. All right, so now that we've gone through a couple examples, again, remember as you're going through your activity, you're going to think about how are these things connected, why are these things connected, and what would happen if they weren't connected anymore. And you're going to move on to the assignment. The apply activity is located below this video on Canvas. Don't forget to do your exit ticket as well. Make sure you've shared it with Moon when you turn it in. As always, let me know how I can support.